Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today, while I repot my Cebu Blue pothos, we're going to be chatting about my 2025 houseplant trend predictions, what I think is going to be going on in the plant world this year. Before I get into it though, I want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanting content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanting journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you are not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you returning. And we can get straight into it. So, before I talk about the trends, I want to talk about my Cebu Blue pothos because I have 4 separate pieces of Cebu Blue pothos from different times, different everything. And I was like, I don't need 4 that I'm neglecting half of. Why don't I just have 1 and I can put them all together? I did try to put this one on a moss pole, and to be honest, I have fully neglected the moss pole. I don't think it's even grown into it. So like there's kind of no point of it being on a moss pole. It's just adding extra work for me. This one is a propagation that's well rooted. And then this one I'm actually quite excited about because I was trying something new. I soil propagated this and it's got roots in there. So that's why I popped it into a clear container so I would be able to see the roots when they came in, and I can definitely see some freaking roots. And that excites me so much. I've not tried soil propagation for anything other than like Hoyas and jungle cactus before. And so it was quite nerve-wracking to kind of give this a go. And it's actually worked really well, and I'm very proud of it. And so it's time to join that into the mother plant along with these other 2, because then I could just have one big lovely trailing one. I've got my climbing one behind me. I don't need to have another climbing one. I just need the one. Let's just put them all together. That's where we are today. So the first sort of trend that I think is going to be happening in 2025 is underconsumption core. I think it is highly likely that we are going in the direction of people not buying as many plants and more so focusing on the plants they already have in their collection. I've seen several other YouTubers talk about how they want to not be consuming as many plants in 2025 and really focus on their current collections. And I think that's fantastic. I think that is a great thing for us to be doing in the plant community, just because like, what's the point of having a whole bunch of plants that we aren't paying attention to as much as we could when we're just sort of like buying more and more? And so I kind of did this in 2024. I really limited my buying. I didn't really allow myself to get very many plants. I was really focused on making sure that I was taking care of the collection I had before getting new ones. And while I did still buy some plants, it was a sort of drastic reduction in terms of like the numbers I was adding into my collection than I was before. And I was also downsizing, so I was getting rid of lots of plants, and I really pared down my collection to, I think, a lot more of a manageable number. And I found that incredibly helpful. I found that I have felt a lot more on top of my houseplant care than I have in previous years. I've noticed not as many pest outbreaks in my collection, which has been fabulous. And I've had not necessarily a lot less to do, but things have been more manageable. I've not had the sort of worry of plant burnout that I have had in previous years. While there's still obviously some times where I'm not feeling 100% in planting, that happens with everybody. It never got to a point where I was like, I really can't do this, which in some previous years has in fact happened. So I feel like it was definitely worth doing. It was a fun time, a fun experiment. But in the same vein, as someone who creates content about houseplants, I've kind of almost felt like it's gotten not boring, but I'm worried that my content has gotten too samey. Like I'm not really experiencing major issues, and it's when I'm experiencing major issues that I learn and I'm able to like teach from that experience, as well as like provide somewhat more interesting plant content, in my opinion. It's like, it's all well and good if everything's going great. That's fun, and it's nice to look at pretty plants, but it's not as exciting, if that makes sense. And I don't think this would matter for just sort of the average person who doesn't create content. The average plant parent who doesn't create content, this doesn't really matter. What I'm saying here, this is more applying to, I guess I'm going to question a little bit what y'all want to see, what you would kind of prefer for me to do, because like I said, I've not been doing as much pest related content this year because I haven't had, like, I'm very, very glad about this. I'm not complaining. This is like champagne problems almost, but like it's, it kind of just feels like, it feels like I've not had enough to talk about almost. And like I feel like I've run out of things to say because I've just been able to get my plants growing very, very well and nicely over the past like few months, or several months, I guess, year. Oh gosh, this is actually, like, while it's not rooted into the pole, it's rooted into the soil beneath the pole, inside of the pole. So still trapped by the wire mesh, but not in like sphagnum trapped, in soil trapped. So this is actually harder than I thought it was going to be to remove. But yeah, I think my question is has my content started to feel boring? And like, if it has, you can be brutally honest here. I would fully, like, I'm asking for your advice in this situation. I want to know what y'all think, what you guys are feeling. Like, not, obviously, I'm sure you wouldn't wish pests upon anyone, but like, do you wish that things were a little bit more exciting here? Things were going on and I had to deal with more, and it, like, there was more to talk about. Do you think that? And it's totally okay if you do. I have no problem. I'm not gonna like resent you for wanting more sort of what I would think is interesting content. Because I don't know, I find when things are just going smooth, it's just not as exciting. And when other planty YouTubers are just showing like the good things that are going on, like, it's great. I'm very happy for them that their collection is going well, but it's also kind of like, does it get a bit boring? Also, I highly miss doing hauls, because I do really enjoy them, but I feel like since underconsumption and not buying as many plants this year is like what I think is going to be the sort of trend, would you still want me to do hauls? Do you want me to, like, so you can kind of live vicariously through me and like enjoy getting plants without like actually getting the plants yourself, and enjoy watching that kind of thing and seeing what's out there? Or would you prefer to like have me live sort of in solidarity with you and also not be getting plants? Would it be too tempting for y'all if I was getting loads more plants this year? I'm genuinely happy either way. And I don't think I'm going to entirely stop buying plants. I don't think that is reasonable. I've talked about that in my sort of goals and stuff. But like, how much under consumption core do we want? Also, it's like part of me, this sounds really bad. Part of me is like, oh, maybe I should just give myself pests. Or like if I see pests, not treat them so that I have something slightly more interesting to deal with. Obviously, if it's on a plant that I'm like absolutely obsessed with, I don't want to do that. But should I just like let myself get pests in order to have some more interesting content? I'm open to feedback on that. Oh, these roots are actually really nice. Look at that. Okay, so obviously this one had like a bajillion nodes beneath the soil, but from every single one of those nodes, it has popped out some new growth, which is so encouraging. Oh, I'm very proud of these. Okay, good. And then this soil is perfectly good soil, so I can continue using it. I can almost put it back into the bag. Maybe I won't put it into this bag, but I'll put it back into a bag just because it is still perfectly good, but it might have fungus gnats in it, so I don't want to like join it in with something else. If we dump that out, then I can take this one and take the moss out into this, so it's not just getting everywhere. So yeah, that's kind of like my main sort of, I guess, question. I think it's a really interesting conversation. I'd really be interested to hear what you think if you're trying to stop buying as many plants this year and really focus on the ones you have, or whether you're going to continue to collect at the sort of same capacity as before. I'm very, very curious to hear your thoughts on it. Either way, because I find it incredibly interesting, and maybe it's something we can keep talking about throughout this year. But carrying on with that as what I think is going to be one of the main trends of 2025, at least from what I'm seeing, I think if we are buying plants, there's going to be a massive shift and focus onto the sort of more easy care plants, things that are like low maintenance, not hard to take care of, and things that maybe aren't as expensive. Maybe going back into the sort of like classic plants a little bit again. Not that like we've ever fully left the sort of classic plant realm, but like keeping back on the sort of like ZZ plants and Aglaonemas and things that are really easy care and aren't too much work and added extra like difficulty for us. I think that is going to be actually quite a big thing this year, as well as not exactly in plants, but in sort of tech, I guess. I think there's going to be like a rise in plant tech. I've already been seeing it through the end of 2024. I've seen so many different like tech things coming out that you can like pop into your soil and it'll tell you about light levels and water levels and remind you on your phone that you need to water things. Would you be interested in me talking about some of those things? Because I have bought 3 different sort of tech things, if you'd like a sort of review on those and talking about that, as well as I think self-watering and maybe popping more things into semi-hydro is gonna continue to be a big sort of theme, as well as no drainage. No drainage has become like, I think, quite big among the sort of plant YouTuber community, at least. I know Unplant Parenthood kind of like started that sort of trend, as far as I know, and a lot of us have sort of hopped on board with it. Though what Unplant Parenthood does, she tends to do it with soil even, and I tend to go for no drainage with semi-hydro. I know other people do a mixture of both. I'm very much so in the semi-hydro camp. Is this pot gonna be big enough? There's a lot of roots in this, and this is like already quite full. Let's see. I don't particularly want to give it a bigger pot, but it's so many stems with so many individual roots. I think it'd be different if it was just like 1 or 2 plants that were quite thick, but I think I'm gonna have to go for a bigger pot. Okay, let me actually just go grab one really quick. Just grabbed one, like 1 size bigger in there. It's not too much wider, but it is quite a lot deeper, so that'll do, I guess. And I'm not gonna be able to use this cash pot anymore, which is fine, it doesn't really matter. Sorry, no. Oh yeah, easy care plants and how I think those are going to rise in popularity. I think it makes a whole lot of sense that easy care plants are going to be so popular. That being said, I don't think there's going to be a full shift away from sort of rare and unusual. I think there's still going to be like rare and unusual plants that people are wanting and striving to get, especially anthuriums. I do not think the anthurium craze has gone away. I honestly don't think it will. They're just such such popular, beautiful plants. And while they're not necessarily my cup of tea, all of them, I can see that they're still going to be extremely popular. And I think that they're becoming so much more accessible, and more hybrids are becoming available at lower prices. And I think that is going to continue their like boom in popularity. Also, the rise of variegated anthuriums, which personally aren't my cup of tea. I do think they do look a little bit diseased. For the most part, I do have one that I personally don't think looks diseased, but I mean, that's open to interpretation. But I think more and more of these sort of rare and unusual anthurium hybrids and variegations and variations in general are going to be popping up and getting more and more accessible. Similarly with alocasia, I think the sort of boom of variegated alocasias is going to continue. There was a whole lot of new sort of variegated ones coming out in 2024, and I think that is going to continue. I mean, you even saw the like massive decrease in the cost of the variegated Frydek, which sort of kind of like jumped that sort of variegated alocasia trend. And unlike anthuriums, I don't think variegated alocasias look sick or unwell. So I think that is something that is going to continue to grow in popularity, and I'm hoping that that means that they are able to decrease in price as well. I guess we'll see in 2025 if that is the case, if we are able to lower those prices on variegated alocasias. I think also more different varieties of them are going to become more common and popular. I feel like in the time that I have been collecting plants since like 2018, 2019, there's been a huge amount of different types of alocasias that have come to light that didn't really, like, that weren't even on the radar back a few years ago. Like, there's so many more varieties that, like, you couldn't even fathom getting 3 years ago even, that are available now and are available for not terrible prices as well. Also, I think Hoyas are going to continue to be massively popular, and I think part of that is kind of going back towards the sort of easy care plant things. They tend to be fairly easy to care for and fairly low maintenance. Obviously, they're not like they're not no maintenance. No plant is absolutely no maintenance unless it's fake. But I think because they're much more low maintenance than sort of anthuriums and alocasias tend to be, they are going to stay high up in popularity. And also, it's quite easy to have a lot of Hoyas that don't take up very much space because they tend to be a bit more slow growing and small. Of course, eventually they will get bigger, but like in order to collect them and to have successful plants, I feel like you're able to have a lot smaller of them than you are other plants, maybe like a philodendron or monsteras. I think more monsteras are going to be showing up as well. I've seen a lot more like different varieties of weird monsteras coming to light with different sort of variegations and sort of leaf textures, most of them in more of the like large form monstera style as opposed to the sort of Adansonii style, which were a lot more popular a few years back. And I think they are still massively out of reach for a lot of people and very much out of a lot of people's price ranges, so they're not going to be at the forefront, but maybe by this time next year they will be a little bit more accessible. I mean, you've even seen things like the Tycon, which several years back you could not get a Tycon for less than £100 at the minimum, and even that it might have been like a wet stick or a single leaf cutting. Whereas now I feel like we've gotten to the point where you can get them in almost even big box stores and they're so much more available and accessible and a lot cheaper, which is awesome. I think that's really cool and I'm excited about that, and I think it's fun because it means more people can have them. But I feel like the sort of crazy monsters that we're seeing currently on Instagram and in sort of Asian plant markets, we're not quite there with those. Maybe down the line, maybe in a couple of years, they'll be as popular as the sort of Tycon and even the Monstera albo. Can you remember the Monstera albo craze of like what, 2020, when they were like everywhere but simultaneously not, and like scarce, and everybody wanted one and it was so hard to get your hands on one? And now I feel like they're almost, I feel like, as common as normal Monstera deliciosa. I think it's really interesting to see how these trends are going and working, and hopefully we can not necessarily get all plants to the point where they're easy and accessible, but because like there is some bit of fun when you're able to find a plant that's a bit more expensive and you're able to like get it for a bargain or something, or you're able to get it in a swap or a trade. There is something really exciting and exhilarating about that. So I don't necessarily want everything to just become super duper accessible, but at the same time, it'd be nice if more things were. So yeah, I feel like those are the sort of like main things that I have been thinking about and seeing as the sort of trends for 2025. I still think things like philodendrons are going to be popular, but again, we're going to be getting more into those variegated ones. I've seen things like the variegated silver sword and stuff. They are coming out a little bit more and they're becoming slightly more accessible. Not, I say accessible, like you can find them. They're not cheap, but you can find them. And like, I think we are going to continue down that sort of route. Variegation, I don't think, is over, though I have heard as well a lot of people don't like it. So I guess we'll see. That's the fun about predicting and speculating. We don't know, and all we can do is wait for the future to happen and find out for ourselves in time. So yeah, that's my lovely, now massively more full, and I'm very happy about that, Cebu Blue. Remember when this plant was like 15 pounds for a single cutting? That was crazy, and now you can get them everywhere, and I have this like giant massive pot, which I swear to God would have been hundreds of pounds several years back. It's just so interesting how things change over the course of time. And I massively need to give this a water and a shower. It is quite dusty. So I'm actually I will put it in a shower because I don't feel like going through and dusting each one of these leaves individually. So there we go. I've done that. I have chatted about my predictions and my ideas. Let me know if you have any other predictions for 2025 and what you think is going to happen in sort of the plant world. What plants do you think are going to be popular? Do you think my answers are wrong? Do you disagree with me? I'd be very interested to know. I find all of this a very, very interesting topic, and I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not I'm right in any of these things. And I guess we can react to this video in 2026 and see whether or not I was right. Before I sign off, I want to say a huge thank you to the newest members of my Good Growing fam over on Patreon. So big thanks to Leah Louismond, Hannah, and Megan for joining in. I really appreciate you coming and hanging out, and I hope I get to meet you in the January live chat coming up. If anyone else is interested in joining my Patreon, it is £3 a month, and for that you get all of the things, including things like my live chats where we get to meet up once a month and chat plants and life and everything, and it's a great time, as well as bonus content and polls where you get to pick what my sort of videos are going to be, and access to my Discord server as well, where we can chat plants and you can get plant help and show off all of your things that you're getting, and more. But totally no pressure if that is not your thing. I totally get it, but it's there if you want it, in the link down below in the description. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplanty things you'd like me to talk about in the future, and subscribe for more. I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to keep growing. Bye!